Hi, everyone. Landry Ethredge here with Ethredge Counseling Group, and I'm joined today by therapist Claire Johnson, who is also at Ethredge Counseling Group. Welcome, Claire. Glad you're here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm excited today to talk about something that I think most women have to deal with at some point in their lives, and certainly not just women. Most people, I would say, are have to struggle with this at some point, whether it's, early on developmentally or as adulthood, and certainly as we age, and that is body image. Um, so I'm excited to kind of dig into that. And I know you recently wrote a blog series on this topic. Can you kind of talk a little bit about um, why that's like an important thing to talk about with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it impacts so many people. I mean, most people have struggled with their body image at some point, and it can happen at any point in life. So it's always something to check in on. And it's so prevalent in our society. So just a really important topic in general. But it can impact so many different aspects of our life. It can impact self-esteem, how you feel about yourself. It can impact your physical health if you start engaging in behaviors to manage some of those
Mm.
unhappy or feelings you have about your own body. So
Right.
um, it can impact relationships. So it really just shows up in like every aspect of your life, and a lot of it is rooted in can be rooted in trauma, but also just like, how you see yourself and how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, so that like really strong connection between body image and self-esteem. One
Hmm.
of the things that you mentioned in that list of all the different areas that it might affect a person. And
Hmm.
if that is connected with self-esteem, low self-esteem is going to affect all those different areas too, career, relationships. Um, yeah. And so what might be a tip for somebody who is struggling with low self-esteem and body image issues?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One is focusing on functionality of your body rather
Hmm.
than appearance. So shifting to um, appreciating the things that your body does for you, like simply like waking up in the morning, being able to move around, exercise, all of the amazing things our bodies do that we kind of take for granted. So kind of trying to have gratitude for the way that our bodies help us rather than focusing on the way they look can be a helpful mindset shift to seeing the inherent worth that we have,
Mm.
rather than judging it on the outside appearance.
Hmm. Yeah, it kind of made me think of like the glass half full, glass half empty mindset of
Mhm.
like we can focus, but that's not even really a good analogy because like you said, our body's doing so many things for us. It's really
Mhm.
just sort of acknowledging that the glass is actually pretty full. Like the
Yeah.
body is doing so much and just kind of shifting the focus from appearance to I can get up in the morning, I can move around, I don't know, talk to people I care about, or to like cultivating, you're saying like cultivating gratitude.
Yeah, yeah. Focusing on gratitude for things it's able to do, rather than critiquing the things about your body that you don't like.
Are
So that
there
can,
ways that can kind of you would encourage a client of yours or someone who's maybe not a client of yours to kind of start practicing like a new way of relating to their bodies?
yeah. So some of it is can be just a mindset shift, like paying attention, like if you do go exercise, like noticing like how your body feels and just being aware of like of what you're able to do and like the strength that you have and um just really just being mindful of like of how your body serves you. And then also taking steps to care for your body can kind of
Mm.
help with that. So, physical nourishment, eating foods that are satisfying and nourishing to you, um, not restricting foods, remembering that food is food, it's not good or bad, it just is. And that, just making sure you're physically nourished is one way. And then also movement. So that doesn't have to be intense exercise, just anything that makes you feel good, from walking to yoga, to swimming. I mean, really anything,
Mhm.
is another way to kind of engage with the positive aspects of your body. And it also makes you feel better in the process.
Yeah. So even just, yeah, so movement, not necessarily meaning like it could, I guess it could mean taking a high intensity class, but
Right.
you're saying just any type of movement,
Hmm.
just
Yeah. And
moving, just
yeah.
whatever. And maybe the exercise isn't the point. It's just doing something that feels good
Hmm.
and that you enjoy.
Yeah, it could even just be like dancing around your room, like
Mhm.
it's something you enjoy and that feels good to you. Not something that you hate doing and you're having to drag yourself to the gym. That usually doesn't encourage positive thoughts about your body image or
Mhm.
self-esteem,
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
um, finding those things that feel good to you.
I love that. And yeah, I'm thinking like, yeah, anything that just that brings joy and
Mhm.
that just happens to be movement.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just sort
exactly.
of happens to be movement.
Yeah,
Or yeah,
exactly.
but that's not necessarily the point of it, perhaps.
Yeah.
Um, are there any sort of like mental, emotional things that you might encourage someone? So those are like the eating, like nourishing your body, um, and moving are sort of like outward things. Are there any sort of inward things that you might suggest to someone wanting to improve in this area?
Yeah, so there's some of the, you know, broader strokes mental health self-care strategies that are also helpful in this area. So journaling can be really helpful to kind of
Hmm.
process, get your thoughts out and check in with how you're talking to yourself, how you're feeling about yourself, and like being intentional about that. Getting it out on the page can be really helpful. And then, mindfulness strategies like meditation or deep breathing, all of those things that help keep us present. And the more present we
Mm.
are, the more able we can like pay attention to our bodies and how we're feeling and stay connected. And all of those things help build gratitude and keep us in check with how we're feeling about ourselves and how we see
Mhm.
ourselves.
Mhm. Like reconnecting to your body in the present moment versus
Hmm.
sort of lost in self-criticism or self-judgment or something along those lines.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. Um, Talk to us about like negative body talk. Negative,
Yeah.
yeah, negative talk about the body. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That
yeah,
looks like for clients.
yeah, and that's something I think probably most, negative self-talk about our bodies, I think probably every person has experienced at some point. So that's one aspect of it. But another aspect that can be damaging, is how other people around you talk about
Hmm.
bodies and weight and food and appearances. And just how this is how our society in general talks about it. So it can be really harmful to comment on a person's appearance, even if you think it's a compliment. Someone who's struggling with body image or perhaps disordered eating, that can send someone into a spiral. So just asking people around you in an assertive but kind way to refrain from making comments about your appearance or comments about what you're eating or how much you're eating. Those things can be really helpful and kind of maintaining your peace of mind, and and just like, yeah, it can be, it can be challenging to kind of set those boundaries with people, but
Yeah.
we don't really know how common it is, and how those comments, they may seem small, but they can really have a big impact on your mindset and how you feel about yourself. So just paying attention
Mhm.
to that.
I'm even thinking just how I might be able to challenge myself to be a little bit more creative when I'm giving a compliment. Like it doesn't always need to be looks are easy because you see it visually, there it is. But it might, yeah, it just putting in a little extra thoughtfulness about there's so many other ways to compliment a person other than
Yeah.
how they look because bodies change from day to day, year to year,
Hmm.
decade to decade. And yeah, yeah. So I love that. But yeah, but also advocating for yourself and saying, please don't comment on my body,
Yeah.
which sounds
Yeah.
really scary to do, but but an
Yeah.
important one. So that kind of is like, yes, sort of like boundaries, really.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And just,
Like, what might somebody say? Do you have any suggestions of what
yeah.
you could say? Is it just as easy as saying, please don't comment on my body? Is it-
Yeah. It can be as simple as that. If you're anxious going into a social setting, you can also be proactive and like reach out to someone and say that you're meeting up with, like, hey, if you don't feel comfortable in the moment, maybe responding, kind of being proactive and saying like, hey, I would appreciate if you refrain from making comments about weight or eating habits or appearance, and kind of lay that groundwork ahead of time. And so it kind of takes it off the table. That's another way to do
Mhm.
it. But yeah, it can definitely be challenging because it's very normalized in our society to comment on appearance or talk about dieting or to talk about food or how much someone's eating. It's kind of the norm. And so it is a big shift, but it's worth it to try and be assertive and ask people for what you need.
Yeah, it's so normal. I mean, I can think of like, very well-intentioned grandmother
Mhm.
like, oh, what a, my cousin, what are, oh, what a big boy you are, just that
Mhm.
it's just, yeah, maybe perhaps well-intentioned or,
Mhm.
but that, what is that doing to a kid? And also, what's that also just an adult
Yeah.
having that conversation even beforehand of like, hey, can we refrain from that? Uh,
Mhm.
I think is really important. I don't know. I think more and more, the longer I'm a therapist, I think the more I focus on or I want for clients to learn how to advocate for themselves, to speak up for themselves.
Mhm.
And this is a particularly difficult time of year. I mean, this is being posted in, um, fall, winter 2024. So we're coming into the holidays, and that's a time when a lot of talk about food and
Mhm.
you're seeing relatives you haven't seen in a while. And so that can have a lot of anxiety wrapped up in it. You can feel very exposed physically in those times. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to this topic? Anything that you would suggest for people kind of thinking about this area of themselves?
Yeah, I think, I mean, everything we talked about are all good things to remember. And also if it's something you're really struggling with, like reach out for help, for sure. Because, therapy can be really helpful in kind of navigating some of these issues. Um, and also make sure you have a couple people that you can lean on that
Mm.
understand what you're going through. A lot of people may not understand, but if you have one or two trusted supports that you can lean on, especially getting through like the holidays, I think that's an important thing to focus on.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Have an ally going into it.
Yeah.
Well, Claire, thank you so much for taking the time to chat about this area. about this topic that I know so many of your clients, so many of my clients, so many people in general are dealing with, particularly around the holidays. So thanks again so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.